Can morality lend itself to a scientific approach? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Now, let me ask that another way. Can we arrive at an objectively preferable moral code? That question has now become vital because for too long, Western civilization has answered it no. As a result, key leaders of Western society have embarked on a course leading potentially to human extinction. One would expect people, seeing the approaching result, to turn away from that course, but that is not happening. And if we're going to make it happen, we have to ask ourselves, can morality be something more than a matter of personal belief and preference? Before I answer that question, and I will, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, "Do not bear false witness." Now, there's one for you, the 9th commandment. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, as long as it's legal tender. Now, first, what is morality? Morality is about value, and value requires a standard. Every measurement determines value, and so does any exchange of goods and or services. No one can measure or trade anything without a standard, and no two people can agree on an exchange or even agree to coexist without first agreeing on standards of value. Every person acts morally, but sadly people have not agreed upon a standard. One might act according to one value standard only, one's own immediate good or feeling. The result we call a sociopath. Do any of you out there remember a Broadway play titled Death Trap by Ira Levin? Maybe you remember the motion picture adaptation starring Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve, Diane Cannon, and Henry Jones. Remember the particular line that Michael Caine uttered concerning the word sociopath? Quote, "Clinically, it means, as I'm sure you know, it means one who has no sense of moral obligation whatsoever." Close quote. The key word is obligation. The sociopath sets no value on the rights or feelings of persons other than himself. A society of sociopaths will not long exist. Eventually, they will eliminate one another until one or no one remains. So obviously, sociopathic morality, such as it is inadequate. Adequacy is, of course, a value judgment. So obviously, no one can even discuss morality without setting a standard. But of course, no one can discuss mathematics either without a value standard. Before anyone can begin to set a standard of morality, one must begin with a standard more basic. That standard is truth. Without truth, trust cannot exist. And without trust, human beings cannot coexist. Once human beings have agreed on truth, now we can look at recorded history. History tells us which moral standards are better than others, by showing us which societies survive the longest and what eventually destroys them. Will Durant, in The Story of Civilization, repeatedly observed, and again I quote, "Religion attends the birth of civilization. Philosophy accompanies it to its grave." Unquote, Will Durant. Now that statement might sound facile, but only because humans have relied on religion to set their moral standards. The gods would or would not be pleased with a right or wrong act, people have said, since society began. Indeed, divine pleasure or displeasure was the typical expression to decide what acts are right or wrong. Problem is, some so-called gods seem to take pleasure, or they're reputed to take pleasure in acts that not only make their societies repugnant and fearsome, but which also corrode their societies and cause them to eat their own. At least now we have the benefit of the experience of thousands of years of recorded history. That at least gives us examples of codes of morality that work or fail. So what really makes a civilization thrive? What distinguishes a workable morality from an unworkable one? A civilization thrives when its members cooperate toward the protection of life. And because human beings are born, grow old, and die, a civilization must educate its succeeding generations to take their places to keep it working. So the best civilizations value life and family. And because certain things can threaten everyone's well-being, each member of the civilization will place a value on friendship to help meet any threats. Thomas Jefferson famously said the most important rights are life, liberty, and property, which he called the pursuit of happiness. To protect those, humans set up government to make sure those who reside in a civilization each respect those rights with respect to others. And the most basic level of government is family. Any civilization respects and protects family, or it dies. In fact, human beings will instinctively protect family units even when the government disrespects them for this. Next, I'm going to turn to law and how we get to it from morality. But first, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, the employment issues, unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Morality forms the basis of law, so that governments do legislate morality. Of course, some laws are so obvious, only the sociopath would seriously advocate their abolition, repeal, or lack of enforcement. These are the criminal laws against murder, the R word, robbery, assault, so forth. Sadly, we now see a movement to remove the only apparatus that enforces those laws. But if the government does not enforce the basic criminal statutes, others will. We call them vigilance committees, and we call their members vigilantes. These are groups that enforce such laws summarily. Now that, of course, is dangerous because truth suffers with that kind of summary enforcement. Less obvious, and thus requiring a scientific approach to law and therefore morality, are what some people call crimes without victims. Such laws forbid things like sales of alcoholic beverages and tobacco products to minors, and for that matter, recognition of the very concept minor as opposed to adult. Sales of some kinds of drugs to anyone, adult or minor alike. The practice of medicine without a license, and the distribution of certain drugs without a licensed physician's approval, which we call a prescription. The production and distribution of off-color works, whether that involves minors or not, and the distribution of it to minors. Laws regulating marriage and discouraging divorce also fall into this category. Now, many have objected to such laws, saying that they are matters of personal preference. Such objectors really mean that they hold morality itself as a matter of personal preference, therefore subjective only. But challenge those objectors with the spectacle of a murder, and they usually will call for laws against murder. They have made a moral judgment. In their judgment, the balance between personal license and respect for the rights of others requires laws forbidding some behaviors, but not necessarily others. And that is where I would disagree with them. Now, in one extreme case, in 1924, two students at the University of Chicago named Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb murdered a 14-year-old boy as a true test of their superior intellect. This case saw two kinds of dramatic treatment. The 1929 play Rope by Patrick Hamilton, which famously saw adaptation into film by Sir Alfred Hitchcock, and the 1956 novel Compulsion by Meyer Levin, which saw a 1959 film adaptation by Richard Fleischer starring Orson Welles. Of the two, Rope is most instructive. In it, the two killers drew inspiration from their teacher, who taught that morality was for lesser beings. Actor James Stewart, who played the teacher for Hitchcock, gave the most resounding refutation of that notion in film history. So, whoever objects to laws against crimes without victims must make sure that a wrong act does not make victims. The basis for Amendment 18, Prohibition, was that alcohol abuse and alcoholism do make victims of those who depend on the offender to provide for and protect them. So, as you see, a properly moral society protects its families. That includes forbidding certain influences that can weaken the family. It can also mean defining family in terms of the production and training of the next generation. That's what makes certain preferences immoral, because they degrade the idea of family, which is central to a sound society. The Christian moral system turns out to be the best of all. Now, it gets most of its attention by proscribing sexual sins of all kinds, defining marriage as one man and one woman, and reserving intimate activity to that kind of unit. It also frowns upon divorce, thus affording to children a stable environment and a good academy of adult living, for lack of a better term. This system starts with the Ten Commandments, and especially those beginning with the fourth. That commandment prescribes 1 day in 7 to rest and reflect on one's relationship with God. The French Revolutionary Committee on Weights and Measures famously tried to redefine the week as 10 days instead of 7. Emperor Napoleon swiftly reverted to a calendar with a 7-day week. The other commandments command honor to parents, who are the heads of family. And the last 5, of course, forbid murder, sexual mischief, and more broadly, cheating, theft, perjury, covetousness. With these commandments, God established the basic rights of human beings and principles of justice. Paul of Tarsus and John of Jerusalem gave attention to other forms of sexual mischief and to drug abuse. See, for example, Revelation chapter 9, verse 21. And neither repented they of their murders and their, the next word is often rendered sorcery. But the Greek word is pharmakia, and it means drug abuse, from which we get pharmacy. The West is in moral crisis today because those who have arrogated to themselves the authority to write its laws have inverted morality. That is, turned it upside down. Too many people celebrate this moral inversion. They cheer refusal to prosecute the most basic criminal acts, and measures compelling others to recognize as marriages and families certain associations that do not qualify. But few people realize that those oligarchs have substituted their morality for the Christian morality that once formed the basis of Western civilization, and Russian civilization also. Their standard of value is nature, which to them means the wild. Humans are a blight on planet Earth, so anything that discourages procreation and encourages depopulation is now moral. So when Mike Schellenberger decries those who insist on treating sufferers from gender dysphoria with surgical mutilation and hormonal poisoning, as he did over the weekend and again yesterday, he misses the point. The point goes far beyond decrying such treatment as bad medicine. It is that all practices that threaten the family by limiting its size or especially substituting for it are wrong. That is the point on which moral thinkers must make up their minds to agree. This makes a Christian reawakening the more important. Will Durant was correct up to a point. The Christian system, including its ethical system, will save our civilization. Links in the description to the article, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to yesterday's video about the cult of wokeism and other videos that I've done about Christian revival and Christian governance. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.